Awesome. Hello, everyone. It was a little trend fix on the Doom music we had going on. I don't think it was Doom music, but certainly had a lot of Doom energy to it. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am Dark. I am a community specialist here at Hack the Box, and I am so excited to have you all here today for the 2023 Business CTF, The Great Escape. We are fortunate enough to be sponsored by the wonderful folks at Steak that if you haven't met those folks, they are fantastic and can't be happier to have their support. That being said, we have some amazing content today, and I know we're all really excited to get started. Let me go ahead. Real quick, I know that it's a crazy world out there and there's a lot going on, and crazy, honestly, right now might be selling it a bit short. So we really appreciate everyone being here, no matter where you're at in the world. We know that there's a lot going on. So, hey, we're happy to have you here, happy to have you hacking with us and hanging out with us for this weekend. So, heck yeah. That being said, we have, like I mentioned, a lot of fun stuff ahead of us today, and we will go ahead and get right into that. Let me go ahead and get my intro slides all pulled up, and we can talk through some of the amazing content that we have coming up. Awesome. So as I mentioned, this is the 2023 edition of the Hack the Box Business CTF, The Great Escape. This is going to run from July 13th. So today until Sunday, just keep that in mind for scheduling at challenges, how you want to pace yourself throughout the CTF. Let me go ahead and dive right in here. First and foremost, I'm a new face here. You might not have seen me before. I'm one of the newer members here on the community team at Hack the Box. My name is Dark, like I said, aka John. Let's go into a little bit more about what I actually do here, though. A little bit about who I am. I joined Hack the Box in November of 2022 as a community specialist. I work in a lot of the North America things. So if you're in North America and you're going to be at something like DEF CON, any of the bigger conferences, I live in the Midwest. So if you're around there, you'll probably see me. And if you see Hack the Box at a conference, there's pretty good odds you're going to see me. And if you like see me on the stream, hey, definitely come up and say hi. That being said, I did join in 2022 as a community specialist. I love the team here. I can't say enough good things about my coworkers on the community team. Before that, I've been involved in box/content creation. I've been involved in the InfoSec space here for about 5 years now, working with other training providers, you name it. I've worked for a lot of the big ones. And if you search for some of the other content that I've done, there's some fun stuff out there. Outside of that, I've worked in the community management space. So doing Discord things, working on Reddit and other stuff like that. It's all fun. It's pretty awesome. And as I mentioned, about 5 years in the InfoSec community space. Yeah, awesome stuff. Outside of Hack the Box, I am a penetration tester. I work for a pretty big company here in the US. Ton of fun there. I do CTFs. I admittedly haven't been doing, I need to get a little bit back into the habit of doing CTFs. I say this as I'm hosting a CTF, doing a lot of coding, which is always fun stuff. My formal education is in network and system administration. And before that, it was materials engineering of all things, which is think like chemistry, but I worked with steels and, ceramics and stuff. And it's like, oh man, that's weird. Let's go to hacking. That's way better. Little bit of background beyond that. I do maker things. I have some fun photos up there. And admittedly, this might have been an excuse for me to show off the pinball machine. Oh yeah. D&D. I saw that in chat. D&D is huge for me. I do a lot of maker things, prop collection, prop making. So, when I say prop making, portal guns, anything from video games, Indiana Jones, I have almost a full Indiana Jones cosplay, whatever, things like that. It's all a lot of fun. And like I was saying before, maker things, there's pinball machine that I'm working on. That's a wood 3D printed D20, which is awesome. I stained that and did a lot of fun things with it. Wood 3D filament is honestly a ton of fun. And then that's a guitar that I 3D printed. Moving forward, before I get stuck talking about all of my crafts and whatnot, I think y'all are here to hack, not to listen to me just ramble. Let's talk about the actual CTF, why we're here. The business CTF, oh my gosh, it's going to be a great year this time around. Honestly, the challenges are great. I'm excited. So why we do the business CTF? Pretty straightforward. We want you guys to have fun, and it's honestly a lot of fun for us to create it. So it's kind of a win-win where we get to make awesome stuff. I get to make fun talks and get to oh no, my GIF isn't gonna load. Well, that's a Bob's Burgers joke about Bob wearing a a suit jacket that makes him look like a mid-level drug dealer. I know, great stuff. We want to make fun stuff that you guys can have fun with. Man, I'm just disappointed my GIFs aren't working. I went hard for prepping my GIFs. That's okay. This CTF is really meant to give you a chance to test your hacking skills, especially in a live environment where you have new challenges, stuff that you haven't necessarily seen before. It's easy enough to have things that we've done before, things that we've done on the Hack the Box platform, and there might be solutions to it. But when you have something entirely new and fresh, it's a different experience and you can learn a lot more, and it's a great way to really test where you're at and what you might need to improve on. And if you're looking for something as a beginner that you really want to get really want to make sure that you get a lot out of this live stream, try to take notes on areas that you live stream out of this CTF. Try to take notes on areas that you struggle, because that really can inform what you focus on afterwards. A couple other fun points here. Another thing that we have this for is meaningful team building. Work with your teammates. If you are doing this and you have a team of just yourself, definitely consider reaching out to your coworkers, maybe your friends and whatnot. Probably coworkers, since this is a business CTF, of course. But hopefully you're friends with your coworkers. That'd be a little weird otherwise. But it depends on your workspace, I guess. Reach out to your team, work together. There's nothing like banging your head against a proverbial brick wall as a team. And hey, nothing like going through it all together. And then bragging rights and prizes. I'll get into the prizes here in a little bit, and I can't say enough good things about them. But this year, again, we have over $50,000 in prizes, and there's some cool stuff in there. This year, we have, let's see, those numbers are, yes, those are updated. I had them not up to date earlier, and Sodi fixed them for me, which is very, Sodi Roadrunner fixed them for me, which I really appreciate. We have over 800 teams this year, over 5,000 professionals. There's so many folks here. There's so many of you wonderful people here to participate in this amazing CTF. We couldn't be more thrilled. Let's see. The CTF info in general. So let's talk some details. Let's talk about where we can what the CTF is actually going to run for, so like timing, and then how you can actually get support. So on that slide, you can see that I've added the timing. That is in UTC when the CTF is going to open up and then also going to close. That's really important. Try not to procrastinate challenges right until the end. I know you all will, because that's what I do. And if you don't do that, and I'm saying that you're going to do something bad that you're not actually going to do, feel free to correct me in chat. But if I'm calling you out, I mean, you might as well own it. So like I said, it ends on Sunday. If you want support, go hop in the Discord. Wonderful folks in there. And if you haven't gotten involved in our Discord, haven't met folks in there, be sure to join. I did see some folks in chat asking about how to find a team. If you have any difficulties with finding a team, maybe not necessarily for this CTF, but going forward, be sure to look in the Discord. That's really a good place to find folks, even just asking questions and just putting yourself out there. If you're visible, you will find a team. When you're looking for support in the Discord, there is a specific Biz CTF support channel. There's a couple channels for the Business CTF. Be sure to check those all out. It's good stuff in each channel, and it's good to be familiar with it if you want to make sure that you are getting the support that you want or need, especially if you have something that you don't think is working correctly or there's other issues with the CTF. Only ping people with the yellow name. Those are the folks that have support. If you click on their name, you can see that it says on, it's one of the roles in Discord that says Business CTF support or something to that nature. Look for that. That's how you know you're messaging the right person. And even then, if you're very confused, feel free to ping me or another one of the staff members. We'll get you sorted. CTF time. So again, make sure that you are familiar with that. We might have this hosted on CTF time. Could one of my teammates correct me in chat just to make sure on that? And then rules are a must. As always, we can't really have fun with the game if not everyone's following the rules. Please don't cheat. You're going to take the fun away from it. I don't know how you would cheat at a CTF that are entirely new challenges, but don't, I guess. Yeah, that's compelling. going forward, let's get into the actual fun stuff. Let's talk about hacking all the things, and more specifically, talking about challenges. And I'm particularly hurt that this GIF isn't working because Saturday Night Live and Stefan are wonderful. We have so many wonderful different types of challenges today for you. We have web, crypto, reversing, which not my strong suit, but I'm sure a lot of people really like that. Forensics, always a good time doing some whodunit. Pwn. So Pwn and then full Pwn. Note that full Pwn, we do have some actual machines in there, as well as some cloud challenges, and that's just all good stuff. A lot of organizations right now are trying to up their cloud skills and really trying to solidify that, so to speak. These challenges are a great way. If you use something like Hacktrix to support you, be sure to check out like Hacktrix Cloud. You're going to do really well with those. And really, it's awesome stuff. Honestly, I might be a little biased here, but I'm very excited for the cloud challenges myself. And I mean, where can you go wrong? It's always fun to hack computers that aren't yours and, also are up in the cloud. Play by the rules. I mentioned, please listen to the rules. I don't want to have to tell you that you're being bad. That's no fun for anyone. Follow the rules, Metallica. I mean, the rules rule. If you have any questions about the rules, they are on the CTF landing page. And if you need any clarification, just let us know. In general, if you're not trying to be bad, you're gonna be fine. Just don't be rude. Don't try to ruin things for others and try to have fun, I guess. Yeah, that sounds right. Whole lot of prizes, the important stuff, what everyone's actually here for. Biggest prize pool ever, and I am so hurt that my free real estate GIF isn't working. That's soul crushing right there. So first prize, we have some really cool stuff. You can see that the first bullet point on there is a secret Hack the Box trophy. Now, not secret to me because I've seen how we've designed these, and let me tell you, you want this trophy. You want this trophy, and you may be thinking, shoot, I haven't done CTFs before. How can I win this trophy? You just got to go for it because you want this. This is bragging rights. And there's not a lot of these trophies out there because we haven't, there's a finite number of competitions that we've done. We'll be sure to send out some pictures of the trophy once the CTF is ended, but just cool stuff. Be sure to check that out. Access to the Black Sky Lab. That is our cloud labs for business teams. It's one of our business offerings. If you're not familiar with that, I would look up Hack the Box Black Sky Cloud Labs. They are fantastic. There are there's an AWS one, a Google Cloud one, and then an Azure one. And the AWS one, I have attempted myself. It's a lot of fun. It's a really cool environment. It's very realistic stuff too. So you're not seeing something and thinking, where am I ever going to see this? No, it's real configuration issues and stuff that I've definitely seen in the real world. So be sure to check that out. And then, of course, there's some Hack the Box swag in there. I mean, where can you go wrong? I'm repping it myself right. That was the wrong side. Looking at myself in the camera. Yeah, that's not mirrored, John. You got this. And then second prize, I promise there are third place prizes. I couldn't fit them on the screen here, but there's cool stuff all around. Go check the CTF landing page if you want to see a little bit more about this. POCs are everything. So make sure, I went to call him Robinson. POCs are everything. So make sure that when you're looking for help that you are providing some context, especially if it's something that you don't think is working right. The more info that you can provide us, and I'll touch on sharing information with other teams, but the more information you can provide us, the more we can actually help you. It helps us know what's going wrong, and that helps us identify if you maybe are having issues with a machine or something like that. It helps us identify what might be happening on the back end. So make sure that you're putting in that effort. Make sure that you have some substance with your questions, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit, ironically, with my amazing talk coming up, technical onboarding. So talk about how to get help and how to avoid being a help vampire in that. So be sure to have just a little bit of substance there. It does help. It's going to help you. It's going to help us. It's going to help us make you happy. And I think that makes us happy. If you're happy, yeah. Cheers to Hack the Box. This is Colin Robinson from What We Do in the Shadows. Fantastic show. I'm excited. He's excited. You're excited. What else do you want? And then finally, thank you so much for tuning in for the intro. After this, we're going to move into our first wonderful talk, and that is, I have this up on the side, finding logic bugs in your code. This is by one of my coworkers here on the Hack the Box team, Zayad. I am going to butcher his Twitter handle, but it's 21Y4D. He is a training developer here at Hack the Box. Like I said, talking about finding logic bugs in your code, even if you're not a developer, that is incredibly helpful. Be sure to check that out, especially if you are a pen tester or even defense. Knowing how to look through code, knowing how to review it, and knowing how to understand that, you will go far in this field if you can do that. That being said, without further ado, I think that we have some talks to move into. Let me go ahead and get that first one queued up, and we can go ahead and get the party started. How's everyone in chat doing? See a lot of activity in there. Always good stuff. Be sure to hang out in the live stream throughout the day. I will be in the chat for most of the day. If you see the Hack the Box handle, a lot of times that's myself or one of my teammates talking, but it's always good stuff. Let me go ahead and get the next one all started, and I think we're ready to go.
Good day, everyone. I hope all of you are having a good time at our Hack the Box 2023 Business CTF Talks. And today I will be talking about finding logic bugs in your code. Now, this will be part of our upcoming secure coding module titled Application Logic Flows, which is a module due to be released soon. And this module will be all about logic bugs and logic flows. And so let's start by discussing what logic bugs are. So what are logic bugs? Logic bugs are unintended flows in the logic design of any application, whether it's a web application or a mobile application or any other kind of application. When it handles user input or any other kind of input, it may behave in a way that is unwanted or unintended, and it may lead to several kinds of behaviors that leads to bad impact that we want to avoid. Generally speaking, logic bug flows are very difficult to identify using tools, whether it's AI-assisted tools or code reviewer tools, because identifying logic bugs needs us to be able to fully understand how the code is working, and if there is a single thread of logic that should be behaving some way and is actually behaving another way, depending on what kind of input we give it, then we would be able to identify this logic behavior. And unless an application fully understands how the application should work and what its logic design should do, it would not be able to identify such issues. And this is why tools are usually very bad at identifying logic flaws and logic bugs, which is why we do such modules to be able to learn how to manually identify these bugs. The impact of logic flaws and logic bugs can be as small as minor inconveniences for the front-end users, but it can also be something that leads to financial losses or denial of service, or even account takeovers and privilege escalations. And in some cases, it can even lead to backend control and remote code execution. So it is very important to be able to identify such bugs and such flaws and rectify them and patch them. Now, let's go through some examples of logic flows that I personally had through my experience to be able to fully understand what logic bugs are. A recent example I've come across is with an iPad children painting app. My 3-year-old son was playing with a painting app, drawing using brushes and pencils and whatnot. And like most apps, it has some pay to unlock features, like some colors that are like golden or mixed colors and whatnot, and some kind of brushes. And one day I noticed that my son was drawing with a golden color, which should be, paid to be able to unlock it. And immediately, I thought that perhaps somehow my son paid for the version and was able to obtain this color. But quickly, I realized that he was not able to do that, obviously, because it requires a password and so on. So I kept digging to see how he was able to use this paid feature. And then I found out that somehow, obviously without knowing, just by messing with the app, he was able to use the golden color with the brush, even though it should be locked with the brush. But the golden color is allowed with the pencil. So I think he figured out that when you go to the pencil and you select the golden color and then you switch back to the brush while having the golden color selected, it would remain and you would be able to use it with the brush, even though it should be locked for the brush. So this is a very basic example of a logic bug, because the state of the mobile application does not reset to the color when you switch the brush, and you are able to use this paid color. Obviously, this is just a basic example and a small example, but it shows how a logic bug can affect sales, because now you don't have to pay to use this color. Another example is when I was able to pre-order an iPhone before the pre-orders even opened. You see, when iPhone pre-orders start, you have to do it very quickly. Otherwise, you will run out of options or storage options or color options or even iPhones. They will run out very quickly. So I was using one of the online retailers, something like Amazon or Target, that had the iPhone as coming soon for pre-orders starting tomorrow. And when I clicked on the ad, it had the add to cart button, obviously disabled because it still says coming soon. But I was wondering how this is being calculated and why it is being disabled, whether it's being done in the front end or in the back end. So I tried to enable the button using the browser DevTools, and the button was enabled, but you were not able to add it because it still did not say add to cart. It was the coming soon button, and there was no way to change that button. But when I tried to add another item to the cart, and then I manipulated my cookies to change the item ID to the iPhones, and then refresh the page, and I found out that the unreleased iPhone, not even for pre-orders, was now in the cart. And then I thought, obviously, when I do a checkout, the backend will refuse it and it will not process. But to my surprise, it did process, and the order was placed. And I got an email confirmation that I pre-ordered the iPhone. The demo that we will showcase shortly shows how and why this logic flow happens. Another example of logic flows happened when I was using a local food delivery app. And they had something like a $10 coupon for new joiners that you can apply on your first order. So when you make your first order with a minimum of something like $15 or $20, you can apply this coupon and it will take out $10 from the total. So I added items for something like $15 and applied the coupon, and the total was now $5. But then I went ahead and modified the cart slightly and removed the item. And when I went back to the cart, I noticed that it now says minus $2. How can that be? But obviously the pay button was disabled because there's nothing to pay. So I went back and added an item to make the total 0.5 or something. And this time the checkout button was enabled for a total of just $0.5, even though the minimum was supposed to be $15 or $20. So you should pay at least $5 to $10. And when I went ahead and pressed the checkout button, I was able to pay for the item and just pay $0.5 and be able to use this coupon on just $10.5. And this is how I was able to get food almost for free. In the module, we mentioned several other examples like infinite money or account takeover and so on. But I think this should give us a general idea of what logic bugs are. Full disclosure, all of the vulnerabilities that I mentioned, I directly went ahead and mentioned them to the retailers and to the organizations. And some of them actually fixed the vulnerabilities, and some of them I think they did not. It all depends on the security team. So let's get into today's demo, which is taken from the validation logic disparity section, which is one of the earlier sections in the application logic flows module. So what is validation logic disparity? We categorize it in the module under the parameter manipulation category, and a validation logic disparity happens when there is a difference between the front-end validation tests and the back-end validation tests, which create a disparity between the two ends, leading to various logic flows. The unreleased iPhones example I just mentioned falls under this category. And finally, before going into the demo, let's quickly discuss the methodology that we will follow in this module and other secure coding and white box pen testing modules. We start with code review, in which we try to get a general idea of how the entire application or this section of the code works and what it does, and at the same time, use various techniques and approaches to try and identify interesting functions that may be vulnerable. Step 2 is local testing, in which we further review the interesting functions that we identified and try to understand them and do some testing and debugging to further understand how they work and potentially identify some vulnerabilities through our test. And if we are able to identify a vulnerability, then we go to step 3, which is writing a proof of concept. For white box pen testing modules, this will be in the form of writing an exploit to exploit this vulnerability. And for secure coding modules, this will be in the form of sending a request to be able to exploit this vulnerability and achieve this goal. Finally, we go to step 4, which is patching and remediation, which is always the general goal that we are looking for, whether it's white box pen testing or secure coding. We are trying to find a vulnerability to be able to patch it and have our application be more secure. To be able to do all of this, we built a full stack production-ready application that can accommodate different vulnerabilities and logic flows so that we can go through it and learn all of these vulnerabilities and all of these methodology techniques. we needed something that our users are familiar with, so we built a full replica of Hack the Box Academy, obviously using none of the real code. And we built the front end using React and the back end using Node.js and MongoDB. So it's a MERN full stack. And at the beginning of the module, you will be provided with a folder that you can unzip and open in VS Code. Once you open this folder in VS Code and have Docker installed on your machine, you can open the Docker file and right-click on it and select Build Image. It will prompt you to select a tag for the image, and then you can just build it. I have already done that to save on time. And once that's done, you can go to the Docker VS Code extension tab, and you will find it under Images. You can just right-click on it and select Run. It will take a few seconds to run to set up Mongo and to set up the Node.js server. But once it is run, we can just go to our browser and click refresh, and we should have it. Also, in the Docker file, you would find the credentials for the already added user, which is part of the imported database, which we can just create another user, but we can also use this user and log in, and then we have Academy running. The feature that we were discussing today and in this section is the exam booking feature. If we log in with this user, we will see that we have already purchased an exam and that we are able to book an appointment for that exam. When we click book, we see any available exam slots, and we can just select any of them and click confirm, and we get a confirmation of our booked exam. And now it says booked, and we are able to view our exam. But the question is, how does the front end determine which slots are available? And does this affect the exam booking functionality? Does the backend revalidate whatever we send to it? This is what we should look for. So let's investigate that. I went ahead and restarted the Docker container so that we can cancel our booking. And we can open up the DevTools and go to the Network tab. We can just delete any request that we have and click on Book again. Once we click, we see that the availability request is being sent to /API/exams/availability. And does it have any request body? And it does, yeah. It has ID, start date, and end date. So what about the exam booking? We can just select any date, click confirm, and we see that it sends another request to /API/exams/book. And we can see that it has this time the authorization token. So it is a valid token, and it sends the ID and the date that we selected. And in response, we get that your exam has been booked for 2023, and we can then view the exam and potentially start it. So let's jump to the code and try to further understand this. We can go to the source folder and open it, and the entry point is this app.js application. We can read the code and we will see that it is basically setting up a node server and with Express. But the main part that we are interested in is this API routes, because this Node.js backend is mainly there to handle APIs. And the routes that we are looking for were under /API/exam. So we can just command or control click on it, and it will open all the routes. And the one that we want to test first, it was under availability. The other one obviously was under booking or /book. So we can click on it again, and we will get to this function that handles finding the exam availability. So let's try to understand this function and do some local testing to further understand how it works. It starts by validating the date format, making sure that it is in valid date format, and if it's not, it will just return an error. And then it goes ahead and tries to locate the exam using the ID that we shared. If it doesn't, or the ID is wrong or anything, it would just return another error message. Then the main part of this function is actually finding the currently booked exams between the date range that we specified, something that is greater than or equal to the start date and less than or equal to the end date and is unused. It will look for them, and it will return them into a list of unavailable slots mapped from the exam query that we just sent. Let's try to see how this works by sending a request using the VS Code extension called Rapid API. We can go to its tab and click on the plus icon to create a new request. We can paste the API endpoints from before, and then we can insert a JSON body. We can just copy the one from before that we got in the application in the DevTools. Just paste it here, and can even print it into JSON. And we can just send the request. Obviously, we have to select post because it was a post request. When we select send, we get a list of unavailable slots. So the front end is actually disabling any slots that are matching these dates and only allowing the ones that are not in this list. So this is one part of the puzzle. Now we understand how it disables. But the real question is, does the backend perform the same validation and disables those slots when we send a booking request, or does it just rely on the front end to do that? Let's check that by going to the exam booking function. Once again, if we go to the book, the /book API endpoint, we see the book exam. One thing to note is that before this, we have router.use verify token. And if we read the code, we will see that this verify token function actually validates our authentication token. So we need to be logged in to be able to hit this endpoint. So we need to provide our authentication token later on in the request. So when we go to book exam, we see that it first validates the date format, just like before, and then it finds the exam, just like before, and then it gets to the main part of the function. And what it does is that it uses a find one and update MongoDB query. So it tries to find an exam ID with the same exam ID that we provided, which has already been verified to exist. And it uses the user ID, which is retrieved directly from the authorization token. So we cannot, for example, book somebody else's exam or use somebody else's exam. And we are only able to access this endpoint if we actually have access to the exam and we have already booked it. So there are no access control or authorization issues, as it appears to be doing this correctly. It also makes sure that the exam ticket is not used. So we cannot just use the exam and then go ahead and book it again. And for the dates, it also makes sure that the date is null. So the exam is unbooked. So once we book the exam, we should not be able to change the date or book it again. So all of this makes the function appear very secure. It does all of the access control functions. It makes sure that we cannot change the date after we book it, or we cannot even book it again once we use it. So is it secure? Not quite, because when we go to the next part, we see that it is applying the date that we shared directly. It did validate the date format, but does it validate that the exam slot is available? It does not. It just relies on whatever validation tests that are on the front end and does not revalidate the date that it is actually available once it is sent by the front end. So we can potentially book an exam in a date that is outside the range that is allowed by the front end. For example, it's not next month, it is like a year from now. We can also book a date in the past if we want to do that for some reason. And most importantly, we can book a date that is not available by sending a request with that date, and it will not be verified. So let's try to do that. We can go back to the Docker container and restart it. Once it is restarted, we can go back to the exams page, and we should find that all slots are actually booked and we don't have any available slots, and we should not be able to book the exam. So let's try to test our theory and try to send a request with Rapid API once again. We can create another request, just remove the side menu and paste the previous URL, but change it to /book, and we need to send a JSON body. We can just copy the one that we sent before, which was the date and the ID. Let's just use the previous one and change the parameters. So we have it as exam number 1, and we can just use the date of any date that is not available. Let's say the 6th, which is tomorrow. It's not available, and we can just keep any day, any time. We should also change it to a post request as specified in the API in the code, and we should also add an authentication token. Otherwise, it will just say unauthorized. To get our authentication token, we can just open the DevTools, go to storage, and we see it right here under local storage. We can just right-click and copy row. Then we can go to auth bearer and paste it right here. We need to make sure to delete the key name. Now with the authentication token set and the JSON body set for the ID of the exam and the date, which should be unavailable, as we can see, we can send a request, and we will see that we indeed did book the exam for the same date that we did. If we refresh the page just to make sure that we did indeed book it, we see that it now says booked, and we can view the exam. So this is a very basic example of what a logic flow looks like and what its impact can be. And in the module itself, we actually go through many other more advanced examples, and we use things like local debugging, using texts and breakpoints and watchers, and modify the MongoDB just to be able to further understand all of the complicated examples that we showcase. And this is it for this demo. I hope you had a good time listening to this demo.
Oh no, that's not good. There we go. We're all set. Hey, chat. I'm back. I know. Oh, that was cards on my deck or desk. Hi. Let's go ahead and jump in and we can get started with my talk here in a moment. We're going to talk about technical onboarding. And these slides are very purple. So hey, this is going to be a great talk. You know it. Let me go ahead and get that pulled up. How's everyone in chat doing? Here we go. I guess I want to present that screen. There we go. Awesome. Oh no, there's a hint at what's coming up. Oh no. Awesome. Hey everyone, welcome back again to the Business CTF live stream. If you didn't catch it earlier, I am Dark. I am so happy to be here with you today. And we're going to get started with my talk, which is about technical onboarding. And you may be thinking, I already work for a company. Why do I need to hear this talk? Well, we're going to talk about this from a couple different standpoints. We're going to talk about it, how you can be a better team member for helping with onboarding. And then as you enter new companies, especially as people that might be newer in the pen test field or just InfoSec in general, we're going to talk about how you can really make that process a lot smoother and some of the ways that you can, they're like hidden little things that you can do to make it all better. That being said, let's go ahead and move on in. My gifts work in this, which is great. You're going to find out how big of a Simpsons fan I am. Now, quick little pretext to this talk. This whole presentation is rooted in my personal experience. To add a little bit of background to this, I have been a penetration tester for time. I want to say about 5-6 years now, probably 6 years. The ironic thing is when I started making content, a lot of that initial content, like boxes and like challenges and walkthroughs and whatnot, were based on my initial hacking notes. So this talk is really rooted in my personal experiences in working at a managed information security provider. So like a security firm that worked with a bunch of different companies to do pen test and defense for those companies, as well as my experiences in the community, and then working as an internal penetration tester for a bigger company. That being said, let's go ahead and dive on in. You may think, hey, I've seen these slides before. Yeah, this is an excuse to show you the pinball machine again. It's happening. And the gifts work on this. Hey, there we go. Yep. So if you missed it earlier, quick little elevator pitch on who I am, I guess. I am Dark. I am a community specialist here at Hack the Box. I joined in 2022. Awesome team. I am responsible for a lot of the North America stuff. So if you're at DEF CON, if you're at a lot of the big cons in the US, I'm based out of the Midwest. So if you're at, I usually make it to Circle City Con and things like that. If you make it to any of those, you'll probably run into me. Feel free to come up and say hi. I promise I don't bite that much. It depends on the day though. Yeah, pinball machine and other stuff. I outside of Hack the Box, I have been a professional penetration tester for some time now. I do CTF or CTFs, not as much recently. Admittedly, I've been more focused on coding, just doing coding projects and other fun stuff like that. And then my formal education is network and system administration. So the actual the stuff that we're breaking into as offensive professionals. He does fight. Thanks, chat. And then I'm a maker outside of this stuff. I guess maker is a weird term, but I made that guitar. It's cool stuff. I like what I do with that. Onboarding in InfoSec. It doesn't need to be walking the plank, but there's really a lot that we can do to make this whole process better. So onboarding, a lot of times it feels like you're drinking from the fire hose. And let me tell you, this talk really allowed me to get some choice WWE gifts in here. And, a lot of times it feels like we're on the receiving end and your teammates are the ones holding the fire hose like that. When you first join a company, especially if you're newer or it's a new position or maybe something that you're really seeking to grow in, a lot of times it can feel like there's just a never ending flow of information and there's just too much to digest in a reasonable amount of time. And that can be really overwhelming. Thanks, chat. And we really want to avoid this UDP style of learning. And if we're not careful, it can look like this. I was so close to getting an Undertaker. Yeah, anyone who knows this knows what GIF I was looking for. And we really want to avoid this level of pain because this can be what onboarding feels like. It can feel like you're having a lot thrown on you and you don't necessarily know how to handle it. It can be very overwhelming, especially as a new professional in bigger environments. Going a little bit further with this, when you are joining a new team, especially if it's in a company that you're not necessarily familiar with how it might work. So I mentioned larger, like big corporate companies versus smaller companies. The culture there is going to be very different. And we want to make sure that the culture and the way we're doing this onboarding process doesn't make our teammates feel like this, because otherwise, guess what they're going to do? They're going to leave. And we don't want that. We want it to feel a lot like this. Good old Scrooge McDuck. I guess that's Donald Duck falling into his bed there. But we really wanted to feel a lot like that. And there's really no reason that it shouldn't feel like that. Sometimes there's this want that, oh, I went through all this nasty stuff. Now you have to go through it too. But really, that's just doing a disservice. Being the newbie, don't let us down. Let's talk about what it's like being in that position, being someone that's new at the company. So being a new employee, you have a lot of pressures that are put on yourself, especially technical pressures to improve and really to grow into your position. Almost like a plant that you just moved it to a new pot and you're spreading out, you're feeling out your new environment. You're really learning a lot about the new place that you're in. Chad, I'm so glad that you love my tasting gifts here. It's really helping the presentation. Quick question: is the live stream okay for quality? If anyone would comment in chat, that would be amazing, just to do a double check on that. So, as I mentioned, you have a lot of pressures that are put on yourself. There's a lot of you are going to be pulled in a lot of different directions. And one of the important things with this is, ironically, learning how to say no, but being selective about that when you are newer in a company. And really, that is to make time for growing yourself. Now, this isn't necessarily something that you're going to do entirely in company time. There's really a lot to this. And anyone that tells you that, oh yeah, all the studying that I do is during work, either they have a great workplace that gives them lots of time, which, hey, power to them if they do. But there's a lot more to it. And InfoSec, not even just offensive security in particular, but InfoSec in general, you have to kind of want to learn this. And if you're throwing your homework down the toilet, metaphorically, you're not going to get very far with that. Making time for yourself, this is really what I wanted to get into, is the whole free time paradox. I'm very guilty of this, and this is something that admittedly I'm working on getting better at. It's very easy to tell yourself that you're parched and running out of water. No, that you're too busy and you don't necessarily 240p. Okay, good stuff. You don't necessarily have time right now, but maybe in a month from now, maybe 2 weeks from now, things are going to get better. You're going to have more time. You're going to be able to set aside the time that you want to dedicate to this. But anyone that's been in this position before, or anyone that is older than me, is going to know certainly that that's. I mean, you can convince yourself it's going to happen. Is it going to happen? Stop trying to fetch a thing. No, you need to make time for yourself, and you need to be proactive about it. The time paradox, really, you need to solve it by recognizing that if I want to get better, it's got to happen with me wanting to get better, and I have to do it now. Not necessarily here and now, but you need to start building these habits. One of the really popular things on Twitter, and I'm sure that this is happening on Threads, is rather 100 days of hacking or 100 days of programming. Those are awesome. And if you're not familiar with it, 100 days of hacking, 100 days of coding is a challenge that is meant to immerse yourself in the environment of coding or hacking, where you do a little bit of coding and a little bit of hacking, depending on which challenge you're doing. For this one, we'll talk about hacking just to make it easy. You do a little bit of hacking each day. Realistically, you want to do about hour and a half, 2 hours, but that's up to you. An hour is usually a pretty good mark just for most people, because an hour is palatable. It's something that you can say, yeah, I can make time for this. So definitely something to be aware of. You do need to be proactive about it, otherwise it's not going to happen. Staying organized. It's very easy to get overwhelmed if you don't have visibility into your work. And one of the things that I'll be touching on here in just a little bit is a couple books that are going to go into how to stay organized and understanding the IT workflow. We're going to talk a little bit, admittedly, about Agile, and anyone who has done Agile before probably knows that it's not the most fun for pen testers or for InfoSec personalities or people, but either way, it's stuff that it's really important to know about. And being organized is a lot of Agile. If you are organized, you can get more done. And a lot of people say that, well, I'm organized, I'm getting more done. That makes me the rusty wheel that's going to get the attention. I'm going to get more work. And yeah, you are going to get a little bit more work at first, but a good manager is going to recognize that you are staying organized and staying on top of your work. Pardon me. A good manager is going to recognize that, and they're going to reward you by helping you balance your time. And some of that can be saying that I'm working to balance my time, being honest about that, and then taking that back to your leadership and saying, this is the amount of work that I think I can get done. I'm working to get better at this, being candid, having those discussions, and using those discussions to get better. So you can see that it really can help you become more productive and better at getting stuff done faster. Not to give yourself more work, but rather make yourself more dependable. And it's a great way to really make sure that you're a core member of the team. And then reading, I'm going to touch on this in a moment, so I'm going to skip over this point for now. Put in the work, it really pays off. One of my leaders told me, and I forget who the quote's from, but it's anything I ever learned, it came from a book. And that's a oversimplification. But one of the things that I found personally is I really grow the most when I take the time to go read something that is a targeted book. And that's kind of a weird term, but when I say target, it's something that is focused on a topic that I want to learn more about. Putting in that time, it's going to pay you back tenfold. IT support cat has the technical skills you need to survive in this competitive marketplace. You should just totally go chew on cables like this. This is your technical skill training, and this is what you need to do. Business acumen. So we talked about your technical acumen and, getting better at your job, but we're going to talk about being a good businessman, businesswoman. I apologize. I don't know the neutral pronoun for business person, I'm guessing. Gotta learn. You gotta want to know about the company you're working for. If you don't know anything about it, you're not going to know how to connect the wires. You're not going to know how to get work done. You need to know who you are going to talk to. You're going to learn how to work better in the business. And this is something that I see a lot of people miss when they're doing the technical onboarding. A lot of people get the compliance trainings and other things like that, and they're awful. I get it. They're terrible. But when we say, thank you, chap, for the business person correction. I know I got there at some point. Those trainings are important. And you want to know who actually watched the training? Your leadership probably did. And so did their leadership. And if you're not watching the training, you are now a liability, especially if you didn't do compliance training or, ignored your cybersecurity awareness training and things like that. Thanks, Chad. I appreciate y'all. It's really important to do that. And you don't have to go through it and take notes. You don't have to take it, at that level of seriously that you're almost brown nosing in a business environment, but you should care. You should care because the business staying afloat, the business being productive and working well is really based on you being a good part of the business. So training and then surveys, providing that feedback. Whenever you get a feedback survey, those truly are anonymous. I'm sure some companies that it's not really that anonymous, but in most companies, it's the real point of that of surveys is to get that feedback. It's to know where things hurt. It's to hold up the doll and say, this is where it hurts, right here. And if you're not giving those surveys, not providing that feedback, you are putting yourself on an island, and you're going to start losing yourself in the work. You're going to lose connection with the other people in the company, because they're going to expect you to be providing this feedback and being a good coworker. And those expectations are something that you need to hold up on your end. Some neat books. The Phoenix Project, I mentioned it. That is an agile book. So it talks about the agile workflow for pen testing, not necessarily pen testing, but within IT software development. The Phoenix Project is one of my favorite books that I've ever read. It's not very long. It's like a novel where they're talking through a fake car parts company and talking about why it's not working. It's a company that's failing, that really needs to shore up, kind of tighten its belt, and get everything organized. Great book, especially as someone that's new in InfoSec. This is how the remainder of your company works. Anyone you're working with is probably going to be using Agile, especially if you're doing application security or working with anyone that is going to have a project that follows a development pipeline. Corporate Confidential, I put that in here just as something to be aware of. Corporate Confidential can be kind of a negative book. It's a book about what kind of HR. And I mentioned it in here because it's a great way to kind of be aware of what not to say in the workplace. And there's a number of surprising things in there. I have a little asterisk on it because that book, like I mentioned, can be kind of negative, and not every workplace is like that. So make sure you're reading into it and saying, no, this isn't necessarily my workplace. Don't take the negativity from that book and think that your workplace is going to be that way. And then the last one here, honorable mention, the Checklist Manifesto. Awesome book. This is one about staying organized and making checklists for your stuff. We're humans. Hopefully you're all humans. If the robots are here, cool. I welcome our robot overlords. It's about making checklists. That book was written by a doctor that worked in a hospital that had a high number of failures, like surgical issues or other procedural failures. And they were all really simple stuff, all things that really shouldn't have happened. And they were things that are simple problems to fix. And that gets into some interesting stuff with medical malpractice that, if you've never looked into it, very fascinating. Interesting stuff. But the point of it is creating these checklists that give us patterns to follow. And if you're looking for a great book to read, none of these are very long. Honestly, the Phoenix Project is probably the longest one, and it's still not that bad, but definitely check those all out. Being a good teammate. 1 second. I'm dying over here. Being a good teammate here. Let me go ahead and make sure that, there we go. Being a good teammate, it's really almost like being on a cheerleading squad. Is even if your new teammate doesn't know how to cheer, well, you got to help them learn how to cheer. First things first, peer pen testing. I love this. Pair pen testing, peer programming, whatever, very common in the software development space. The idea with that is that you have two people that are beating on the keyboard like this. No, one person's typing and the other person is sitting there with them. So you have two people that are coding on the same screen. And well, as it turns out, that works really well for hacking too. Works really well for defense. Works really well for anything in InfoSec, because we in InfoSec fail a lot, and we fail on purpose. And I have a point here that says fail early, fail often. And those failures are some of the most important things to have to recognize. Is if you're not showing your failures to your teammates, they're going to start to think that you are some deity. Pardon me. Not necessarily some deity, but they're going to start thinking that their mistakes are theirs alone, and that no one else is making these mistakes. And newer hackers, it can feel like you're on an island in that way, where you're afraid to ask questions because other people aren't seeing the same issues. And this is exceptionally important in a corporate environment, especially when you are working on an internal pen test team or an internal security team that has a lot of custom networking, or a lot of your network is very unique to the place that you work. that can be very difficult for new people to learn, especially if you have a lot of different subdomains in your actual AD directory. Talk through it. I really don't want to be able to read minds. I don't really want to know what's going on in any of your minds right now. Probably not good stuff. Probably all thinking of hacking, right? Yeah. Uh, you got to talk through it. You got to talk about stuff. And one thing that a lot of people miss is talking through the how. And when I say talking through the how, it's the talking through how you get from point A to point B in your head. So why are you making this decision? You see, here's an easy example, port 80. And you go and you know that you want to go check robots.txt, basic stuff like that. But you've seen this technology before and you know where you should go next. You should talk about that. That's something that should probably be in your notes. That is directly beneficial tribal knowledge that you should give to your teammates. So again, if you haven't tried peer pen testing, if you haven't tried pair pen testing, give it a shot. Even if it's with this CTF, go sit down, one keyboard, two hackers, and go do some CTF challenges. I can promise you it's going to pay off. Recognizing struggles. What did you have to go through? Empathy really is the key word here. And you need to recognize that when you go through struggles with joining a company, it's not necessarily going to be something that is unique to you. Anyone that comes in the company realistically is going to face struggles like that or face other issues, and you need to be able to document those issues so that they can be fixed, or you need to speak up about them so that others know to look for them. This can also be recognizing when maybe you're working with a teammate and they're very quiet and you see them struggling with something. It's knowing what they might be struggling with and having the courage to go up and ask, hey, can I help you? Do you need help with this? Oh, I remember when I had trouble with that. I know exactly how to fix that. Do you care if I help? That's all good stuff. And it's going to make you probably their favorite teammate, honestly. That's one of the best ways that you really can put yourself out there. And I mentioned earlier, making yourself invaluable. If you do this, you're going to be the MVP of your team. This is being a team player 101. Questions are not our strong suit. As pen testers, well, security professionals, we're not the best at explaining what we're doing. We're not the best at asking for help, but, we do sometimes. So make sure that you are recognizing when someone might be stuck on a question. That whole pattern of, knowing when somebody's stuck, might be fixated on something and they're pulling up a bunch of Google searches, recognizing that and giving them a little bit of time to go at it themselves. But after that, stepping in, that you're the best teammate ever if you do that. And then approachability, make yourself available. Approachability is everything in this. If you are a stern person that doesn't like other people and you say that other people suck, I don't want to talk with them. Cool. You're not approachable. You're probably pretty rude. And I'm guessing you don't make a lot of friends. And that went a little far, but still don't do that. That's bad. Be approachable, be nice, smile. If you don't smile, I don't know. How's anyone going to know you're ever happy? And you gotta be happy. You gotta be approachable, because new pen testers, new folks on your team, they're going to think you are this high level. You've seen it all. You've been through it all. You know what you're up against. If you make yourself human, make yourself approachable, you are going to get questions. You're going to get a lot closer with that teammate too. What can we do to get better? I can put it together right now for a small assembly fee. Iterate. I mentioned taking notes. I mentioned being cognizant of the issues that you face. You need to take notes on that. If you don't have an onboarding packet or some onboarding material or documentation, one, make that, and two, add to it. Having this in, a lot of teams like to put this in like GitLab, GitHub, or other places where you can do version changes, and Markdown works really well for this. So definitely give that a try, but iterate. If you're not iterating, you are learning things and letting that knowledge go out the window. And that's a waste of money, honestly. Don't be a help vampire. I mentioned this earlier today. Don't be a help vampire. This is What We Do in the Shadows GIF, which watch that show if you haven't seen it already. There's new season coming out today, which is cool. Help vampires are people that ask for help and then you don't give it back. You need to give other people help. It's kind of the golden rule, honestly. Treat others how you want to be treated. give other people help. Don't just be a bloodsucker, because if you're a bloodsucker and only asking for help and not giving other people help, no one's going to want to help you. They're going to see you as someone that's very selfish, and you're not going to get the support that you need. This is something that's really important with getting help with the CTF, or really even just in general getting help with hacking. If you demonstrate you've put in the effort, people are going to be 10 times more likely to help you. And then I mentioned this earlier, but empathy is key. We're all in this together. Pen testing and, what we do in the field is hard. What we do is cool, but it's difficult. And one of the reasons why we love it is because it's difficult. If it were easy, well, one, that'd be kind of fun, but only for a little while. I don't know if anyone's ever played a video game and you turn on the cheats. Everyone goes in Minecraft and makes their diamond house in creative mode. Well, if you are going through and playing that way, you're not going to have any fun. And the importance really is to make sure that you are enjoying it and really trying to have that empathy for others in this difficult environment. Lost my point there for a second. This difficult environment, having that empathy, it's going to make you a better teammate. It's going to make you a better friend, and it's going to make you, honestly, probably a better person in general. So just really good to recognize. And that is going to do it for my talk. Thank you so much for tuning in. That GIF is the only thing that I could find for Hack the Box when I searched on Giphy. So we're hacking pizza boxes today. But thank you so much for jumping in. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer any of them in chat. But yeah, here's to an awesome remainder of the CTF. There we go. Looking around, grabbing my coworker. Awesome. Let's go ahead and we can go ahead, jump into the next talk. Get that all turned off. How's everybody doing in chat? We must fix that. Hack a box today. Yeah. Go hack some lonely boxes out there. There are lonely boxes in your area. Awesome. And we are actually going to go to a quick break. So get up if you are like me and running a little bit low on water. Now that's getting color screened out. Be sure to get up, get a drink, go walk around, and we'll be right back with some more amazing content. Heck yeah. See you in just a bit. Hey everyone, welcome back. Hey, welcome back from the break. I hope everyone had an awesome chance to go and stretch their legs, go get something to drink, maybe something to snack on. Either way, I hope you're back and ready for some amazing talks. We have, let's see, let's get cloud hacking workshop. This is one that I'm personally very excited for. This is a presentation by one of my coworkers on the community team, Panos, who is going to be talking through a cloud hacking workshop during his talk. Definitely something that you're going to want to see, especially if it's something that your organization is growing into, and you see cloud as something that's really coming up in your job role. This is really the talk to be at. So heck yeah. With that being said, let's go ahead and get that talk rolling. And we're going to learn about some cloud hacking with Panos.
Hi everyone, this is Panos from Hack the Box and welcome to the Business CTF of 2023. This is a cloud workshop and we're going to solve a challenge from last year's CTF, a cloud challenge. It is called Trade. A lot of people seem to be intimidated by such challenges, but we are going to show you how if you approach it as any other box, it doesn't matter, that is a cloud challenge. Just before starting, we are going to go over some basic concepts that you may want to know. So let's not waste any more time. So in AWS, there are the access keys. So the access keys are they function as username and password. This is what you use to authenticate to the application. While it is not exactly a username and a password, you can think of them as such and you will not run into any trouble. You will find access keys usually used in code as part of a script, or you can use them in a tool called the AWS CLI. So what is this AWS CLI? It's the AWS command line interface. You can download it from Amazon, it's free, and it's a tool, a unified tool that can manage all the various AWS services. You run it from the command line, as you can guess, and you can also use it to automate certain processes by using certain scripts. Besides that, there is the Amazon Simple Notification Service, the Amazon SNS. This is a web service for the delivery of messages. And when you create a new communication channel, this channel is called a topic. And in order for somebody, some application or whatever, to receive the message from this communication channel, they have to subscribe. They have to become a subscriber to the channel. The way you can get these messages is over a number of protocols. Some of them are Amazon protocols, some of them are what we already know, like HTTP, SMS, email, push notifications on your phone, things like that. And we are also going to come across a database, and it's the DynamoDB. DynamoDB is a NoSQL database, and it is offered as part of the AWS portfolio. NoSQL used to mean non-SQL in the past, but lately it's been used more like not only SQL. They're used quite often in cloud environments, in big data, in real-time web applications, because they are very easy to scale and they are quite flexible and they are not so strict as traditional SQL queries. But we are also going to see that these databases are also vulnerable to injection attacks. Let me connect to my VM now, and we will go over last year's challenge. This should work. So let's start. What do we have here? We spawned the Docker, so we took an IP, and the first thing you do when you get the IP of something is to do an nmap, right? You usually have to add some arguments, like maybe add certain port numbers that you want, or you want to run the safe scripts, or try to find a version of software. For this example, I know beforehand that if we run a simple nmap, we get everything we need. So we find 3 ports open. There is an open TCP port on port 22. This is probably not going to work. There is a web port open, and there is an SVN thing. So let's say we do not know what SVN is. Let's try to see what this HTTP port is. So it's a login page. A lot of us would try to guess the password, but that's usually not the case. There's not a point in the CTF to do this. So let's go to try to see what the other stuff is. Let's make the assumption we have no idea what SVN is, so we can ask Google for it. Let's see if we come up with an answer. There you go. It is Subversion. Subversion is an Apache program. Let's see if this is a nice article. I don't know yet. It should be. And actually, it is something like Git. It has repositories, and it's for software versioning and revision control. Okay, so right after that, we maybe want to find a cheat sheet, so we can try to see if we can interact with it. You will find various commands. I already know the commands that we are going to run, so let's start now. And the first command, it's quite familiar for most of you. It's ls, it's the same as the Linux command. And you have to give the IP, but you have to add this prefix first. Let's see. So, there is a repository called store, and there is another command that we can download it. But I'm not sure what we have done here. Let me check this inventory. It's empty. That's perfect. So we're gonna use the same command, but instead of ls, the command we're going to use is checkout. Checkout may not make sense immediately, but what it does is it downloads everything. And we also see that we are on revision 5, so there are 4 other older revisions of that software. And if you type ls, you see that you downloaded it. You can go to see what there is inside, and you see there are 2 Python files and 1 README file. So let's open something in the text editor. The default text editor for Parrot is Pluma. I just learned about it, so let's see what there is here. Okay, this is how to connect to the database and how to connect to the AWS service, but the keys are redacted, so no luck with that. Then we know it's a database thing because it's called Dynamo, so it creates a table, and this table, it's called users, and it has usernames and passwords. Maybe we're lucky and we find something, and we are lucky indeed. We find the password of a user named Marcus. Let's hope this will work, so we can try to copy it and try to log in as Marcus. No, I don't want to save. And it has 2-factor authentication. It requires an OTP. You can try your 1 in a million chance. I do it every time, just in case I caught it on camera. Okay, so we have to keep searching. We can try and search the other file, the SNS file. We will not find something in this revision, but we said that there are multiple versions of the software. So how can we find this? It's easy. We have to use, instead of the command checkout, the command log. So we see the various revisions here. Database, the Dynamo file was probably added here. So what we would do is go through each one of these to see what works. I already know that this is what we want, so we want to download revision 2. Before that, I'm just gonna make a directory for the old version, and then download it. It's the same thing, but at the end we have to specify which revision we want. So if you see, we downloaded the store file again. So there is only, the database was not added at the time, so we still only have SNS. So let's try to use the text editor to see what we find inside. And this is interesting. So this version still has the keys. It's like having the username and the password of the AWS application. That's great. We can try to use them, and actually it's quite often that you find keys forgotten in code. So this tool, I think, is installed by default in Parrot, but you can just download it, and once you hit configure, it guides you through everything you need to do. It requires the key. Then it requires the secret key. The region is US East. I have already said it previously, but you can always add it again. And we will not need an output format. So we should be able to connect to the AWS service. So we already know that's a simple notification service. So we need to see if we can subscribe to something, and before subscribing, we need to see what topics are available. I have, you can, for example, try to see, and there's documentation in Amazon, in the AWS website about everything. You can Google it. I don't remember anything by heart. And in order to not search in front of you again, I have already saved the commands that we want to use. Yes, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention something. Inside the same code, you will see, let's see it again. So inside the same code, you will find at some point referring to the URL as HTTP as cloud.htb. So what I already done is I went to my host file and I added this value. So it resolves to something. If you're not familiar with that, you can always try to Google how to add something in my host file. It's not that hard. And yes, so we're using the URL that we got, and we want to list the available topics, and we can subscribe and see if we can subscribe. So right now there is only one available. The syntax is easy. You just use AWS endpoint URL, the URL, SNS, and list topics, but I'm terrible at remembering stuff. That's why I have it ready already. And the syntax is really easy also for subscribing. So it's AWS, the endpoint, subscribe. What is the topic? You just copy paste the value from above, which specify the protocol. We want HTTP. And the notification endpoint, we want our own IP address. There is a chance that since we are going to subscribe, we are also going to get a notification. So let's start an HTTP listener and see if we get something. We will open it on port 80. And if you want to open your ports, you have to be a super user to do so. Okay, let's see if this produces anything. It seems we have subscribed. That's good, but we didn't get anything on our netcat listener. That seems strange. Maybe we have another IP address. Let's troubleshoot. We have a couple of minutes. This is it. This is correct. Let's go over it together. This seems to work, but we do not get a notification. Let's try to see if we get a notification if we try to log in. I need to remember Marcus' password once again. So there you are, Marcus. Nope, not here. Let's try again. Oh no, I forgot. Oh, or did I? I have 10 things running at the same time. Yes, this is our listener. Okay, we didn't get a subscription, but we got this one. Let's see what we have. The ATP should be here someplace, and this is it. And we are able to bypass the two-factor authentication. That's nice. There you go. And what we end up with is we get access to this website. So this is supposed to be a darknet website that is selling exploits. We can try to look through each one of them, or we can try to see this search function. Okay, we have a search. We can search for whatever, and as a pen tester, the first thing you do is you can try to fuzz the feed, but there is always the option to just put a single quote, maybe something breaks, add a double quote, maybe something breaks, and something did broke indeed. So this is what we usually call as a detailed error, because it's an error that is producing too much detail, too much information about the system that's running behind. It's better to have a look at it at another, on the text editor, for example. So what this does is, it does a comparison, and this is the comparison operator. So there are numerous operators, like there is EQ, which means equals, LT means less than, and there is also GT, and you can find all about them if you try to research it. And this is why it broke. It never sanitized the double quote, and it got here. So here is where we can put our thing, whatever it is. We can write here, we must turn this to return something true. We have to do a NoSQL injection. Since we know there is a DynamoDB, you can try to search for DynamoDB injections, and you will come across this very interesting not title, it's an article. And here you can see the various operators. I say everyone has a read at this. It's very nice. So the most useful thing right now for us is there is a problem when you try to compare two string attributes. It relies on the ASCII lexical ordering. So the important part is this one. So if you compare string values against another string with lower lexical ordering, and what does it mean? How do you know that it's for sure lower? You can either use an asterisk or a string with a white space, or a single white space. And this is likely to be always greater than the queried string. There is also another thing. So if we add two comparisons back to back, the parser only interprets, the Python parser only interprets the second one. So we can try in this thing right here to create our own payload and add everything that we want from here. So we will try to make it look a little better. So I will do this thing. I think it's better for everyone. So the best part would be if we were able to add things after that, another server name, for example. So right after our thing, if we are able to do something like that. So we have two comparisons, and I need a double quote here. And now we have two comparisons, and the parser will only interpret the second one. So we compare the string, so whatever the script is searching for in the database, with a blank string, and the result of it will be always greater, so it will probably fetch everything. So we have to decide what we want to keep from this query, what we will add in the application. So from here on, from the white space on, everything will be added automatically because they are already part of the code. So we want the start of our thing here. And let's try to paste this in our database. I have removed the line breaks from this, and as you see, it returns everything, and it returns a number of users and passwords. So what you could do is run Hydra with a list of all the usernames and a list of all the passwords, but I can already tell you that this one is the correct one. And you can just SSH to the target as Mario, and let's see what the IP is once again. and then you get an SSH set on the machine, and you can find the flag. So I hope everyone had fun with this. I hope you were able to follow along. I had to do this in 20 minutes. If you have any question, you can always message me at Discord at panossom. You will find me on the HTB Discord, or panossom at hackthebox.com. Send me any questions, and I will gladly try to help you. Thanks everyone, and I hope you have so much fun in the city. Yeah. And there is
Okay, here we go. All right, so we're going to go ahead and move into our next talk, Hack the Blue teaming with a hacking workshop by another one of my amazing colleagues here at Hack the Box, Sebastian Hogg. He is going to be talking about hacking blue team. He is our defensive content lead here at Hack the Box. So going to be awesome stuff. And one thing to note with this, even if you're in offense, or maybe blue team on offense isn't necessarily what you focus on, this is still really good stuff to know, as it'll help you be better at offense by having a good understanding of defense. So definitely a talk to watch, and it's going to be a great one, especially with our defensive content lead. But that being said, we can go ahead and jump on in, and let's get started with Hack the Blue teaming and hacking workshop.
Hello and welcome to my business CTF talk called Hack the Blue. We're covering something I think extremely, in my opinion, interesting today. I probably would say that, as it's very much become, I guess, our baby over on defensive content. We're covering Sherlocks today. I guess you probably sat there wondering, what is Sherlocks? There's plenty of reading material on this, but we'll cover it both at a high level today, and we'll also play through a Sherlocks live as part of this talk. And that is the main focus of the talk. Sherlocks is investigative-based content. What we're really covering when we say investigative content is we're talking in particular about content within Dedilabs that is called Sherlocks. So if we just jump into our dedicated labs here, we can see we've got Dedilabs, and then we enter Dedilabs. You can see that there's probably something you haven't seen before in Dedilabs if you have got licenses. And that is a wide variety of content with varying shields as part of it. You can actually filter now based on offensive or defensive content. If we type in defensive, for example, we can see anything with the blue shield is defensive, and anything with the red shield is offensive. What we're going to cover today, though, is a Sherlock called Repetitive D. Now, you might have heard of Repetitive before if you've completed any of the offensive content within EP. Repetitive is actually an exclusive machine. So not only are we bringing regular Sherlocks out, so we'll have 8 out that are, I guess, classified as exploratory at any one time, but we'll also have bonus content sort of in between that, and we'll release that as we create it. The bonus content in particular will, for the most part, I guess, be directly relevant to a machine. So you can actually complete, I guess, the offensive or red team side, and then go for a full purple team approach and also complete the blue team. If we just jump into our Sherlock here, we can see, for example, we have a scenario, which we can cover in some detail here. We have 10 questions and answers. Now, the reason we cover questions and answers rather than, I guess, flags, like a user flag and root flag, is that within blue teaming, if we provided just flags for Sherlocks in particular, what it might make some people do is potentially just look for the flag, which I believe for Sherlocks in particular is probably the wrong way to go with that. we're trying to teach not just, I guess, the core technical skills of DIFA, but also a lot of the context is quite important as well. So like I said, we go through questions and answers. Now, these don't have to be answered in a linear fashion. You can answer them, you can start on question 1 and then go question 5. You can answer them in order if you'd like. We've tried to put them in the most logical order possible, but it is free, so feel free to answer the questions as you perform your analysis. As what we're really trying to encourage here is, if you perform your analysis in the same way you would if you were analysing an instance similar to this at work. So you can see in the About section here, we also cover some high-level details as to what the Sherlock is, what you're expected to do, and also some details about, I guess you can call it, our purple team approach, which is essentially, if you enjoyed the experience of playing through this Sherlock, please go away and also play through the offensive machine. I can speak, I guess, volumes as to how much that has helped myself in the past when I've been performing incident response activities. Understanding the red side, I think, is still really critical. And the same goes for your offensive guys and girls for understanding the blue side. So let's just read through this scenario. So we believe an attacker has access to our internal network. An alert has fired for a malicious file on our 3D printing server. The implications are serious. This server is vital to our business operations, and any compromise could cause significant disruption. We are provided with a network capture and a set of Nginx access logs. Using these, please investigate how this compromise could have occurred. We are reliant on you to ensure our business continuity. Okay, brilliant. So this scenario is really meant to, I guess, hone your focus in on the incident. We've tried to really simulate here, I guess, a ticket that might have come through to you at a SOC, or a phone call that might have come through from a client if you work for a DIFA security, if you work for a DIFA team or a consultancy. These are this kind of information you'd expect to retrieve in my experience and our team's experience. So if you can see a zip password here, hack the blue is a password to all our zip files. If it does contain malware, there'll be an additional unique password for that Sherlock within that actual Sherlock itself. So we can hit download and it will download. But I've already, I guess, call it pre-cooked this and downloaded the repetitive zip file to my local host. I'm just going to take a quick pause here to grab a drink of water and then continue. Okay, all good. So I guess some additional information here. We can see we've provided with the network capture, so packet capture or PCAP, and some HTTP logs. If we just switch over to our analysis machine, we're using Caliph for this today. You can see here we have the zip file. I've already unzipped it though. As you can see, within here we have both our Nginx directory, where we have, if it loads, give it 1 second. There we go. My computer's going absolutely crazy right now. So we have our access logs and our error.log. Like I said, the error.log, I don't usually find that helpful in instance, so we can check it out later if we'd like to. But we'd like to start the analysis from our access.log due to the fact it's considerably smaller and they're at 71 kilobytes. And I believe there could be considerably less information than our packet capture at 49.3 meg, but we will open that for now anyway. Okay, brilliant. So let's get that open. So as you can see, I'm not tracking back and forth in between my questions and sort of evidence. We'll have a look at as an overview at the evidence first. And what we're really trying to find here, everyone, I guess, is the initial breadcrumb. Because that's what forensics, digital forensics, incident response, SOC work, that's what that's all about. Find that initial breadcrumb and then following those all the way back till you get to your source. And the source in most scenarios is why the attack happened, what was exploited. Okay, how can we fix that going into the future? So we'll open that in a Visual Studio Code. Okay, excellent. Let's make sure we can see every line with word wrap. So if this file was a lot bigger, what I would likely do is drop this into a seam tool, Splunk, Elk, Greylog maybe. My tool of choice we use with Splunk. And because it's an access log, that would just eat that up. And that's where I perform a lot of our hunting or searching. I think for a file this small, it's not really that necessary today. So we'll just be reading this in the good old-fashioned way. One key point to note, timings. Timelining is very important in instant response. That's why when you're completing Sherlock's, you might even get fed up at some point of a lot of questions being, okay, at what time did this happen? At what time did this happen? The reason we're asking that is because, once again, it's directly relevant to how you report an incident. We're trying to simulate as close as possible, everything short of you sending us full reports for us to manually mark. We're trying to simulate how you would write that report and the information you might include in that. And timelining, I guess, is very important for anything to do with the blue world. Okay, so once again, it's a UTC +1. Okay, so now let's have a look through and gain some details. You can see here the host. We'll start left to right. Let's explain the access log first. We see here this is our source IP address. So the IP address is making the request to our web server. Our web server is at HTTP, so printing.repetitive.htb. Obviously, you see our time there. This is the type of HTTP request. This is a GET. And then this will be the URI that you can see here. Okay. If we keep scrolling down, and what we're looking for here is something that stands out to us. We know that it's running a 3D printing server. We haven't been told of anything else it's running, and the only artifacts we have been provided are a PCAP and this. So you'd assume there might be some evidence in here if this has been compromised. And what we're also looking for here, I guess, is any details around what the print server might actually be running, and any details around that as well. Okay. So once again, we can see that this, I guess, fits the bill with in terms of access to our internal network. This is obviously not public facing from what we can see here anyway. Naturally, all the IP addresses seem to be local addresses, so in the 10.0.0.0/8 kind of range from what we can see so far. And once again, just scrolling down here, looking for anything that sticks out to us, and there's not a huge amount so far. We've seen a new address here, 10.10.0.11. Once again, it's in the same range, and it's looking like just standard browsing for the most part. No unusual user agents. These are things you might look for on initial analysis. Some low-hanging fruit to, I guess, try and kick off the analysis process or forensic process. Once again, it all still looks pretty normal here. We can't see a huge amount. Okay, this is unusual. So what you can see here is, so from the 10.255.254.3 address, this is at 10:01:48, so that's 0901 UTC. We can see an actual HTTP post here, and what looks like some kind of path traversal. I think what's also unusual about this is the fact that curl is the user agent being used. Curl is, from as far as I'm aware, know that can only be used from the command line, realistically, which isn't something a normal user would, isn't activity a normal user would perform. So that would usually raise on an internal subnet immediate concern if a sysadmin hadn't been performing that. Especially when you combine that with the fact you can see some very obvious path traversal here, and then you can see it trying to read the cboot.ini file. If we then go to the next line, so 404, so that looked like it was unsuccessful. It then tries to read C Windows system euler.txt, which is also unsuccessful. And we then see, so HTTP 200, so we then see it try to read the win.ini. And that actually was successful. Now, I remember scrolling down repetitive.d, if we jump back into our EP platform, I'm pretty sure we saw some questions relevant to that. Okay, maybe not just yet. Let's go back into our Calihost, see if we get a bit more details of this. So we can see here, it looks like it's also after win.ini, then trying to read C, so program data, Repetia server, database user.sql, and that was also successful. And then the same again So what's unusual about that is the Repetier server bit. So this looks like path traversal here against what looks like potentially Repetier server, which looks like the printing server that's running. Well, let's actually give that a Google to confirm. Okay, yeah, so 3D printing service is exactly what we'd expect, I guess. Out of curiosity, is there any CVE available for this? Okay, so that's quite a recent CV we can see here. Let's just jump into that and have a look, shall we? Okay, can we see anything else of immediate value in here? Just while waiting for that to load. Okay, not immediately, no, but if we jump back into our browser, hopefully that's loaded. Okay, maybe not. We can see a GitHub advisory here as well. Okay, proof of concept. So, Repetier server version 1.4.1. Okay, yeah, so this is exactly what we're seeing here. So it's looking like there's definitely some type of CV being exploited here, and this server must be earlier than 1.4.1. Okay, yep. So yeah, so we're definitely seeing the attempted exploit of I guess a known CV that exists in the wild here, and that's CV 2023-31059 for Repetier server 1.4.1. Okay, excellent. So we know the CVE now at least, which is always good news. So if we go back to our main enterprise platform now, Embedded Labs, we can see here there's probably some questions we can answer. So we use .sql, so that's likely a database. I guess we can almost not hazard a guess, but be quite confident that which DB file was retrieved by the attacker. Okay, brilliant, we got our first question right. Unfortunately, the attack came from, so I think we can confirm at this point this is an attack now. It's path traversal, it's the exploitation of the CV we mentioned. The attack came from our VPN client subnet, meaning the address isn't aftered. To assist in future investigations, can you confirm the user agent string? So that would be curl, I believe, in this scenario. As we can see here, curl 7.88.1. So let's go back to EP and throw that in as an answer and see if we have hit the nail on the head. Okay, excellent. That's a second question that we've got bang on there. Which account was used to successfully authenticate? So I don't think we've seen that just yet. We've seen a couple of sizes for the use.sql. Once again, if we look in here, we can see 20493, 2508. We could, in theory, try both those answers, but it's not too clear which one it would be right now. So I suggest maybe wait to look at our PCAP to see if we can find those details in there. But I think what we can see, there's a question about what time the attacker initially attempted to exploit this vulnerability. The first time we can see is in here, and the answer would have to be in UTC. So if we go 11.05.2023, if we jump back into EP, so 11.05.2023, and then 10, so in fact 090148. Okay, brilliant. So that's another question, right? And which file did the attacker initially attempt to read? So we know that is boots.ini. So if we can see that here, that is the initial file they attempted to read. And the format it's asking for is answer.file. So we're not including the directory in that as well. Okay, brilliant. And what the first file successfully read? So we saw that earlier as well, didn't we, from our access logs? We've got quite a bit of information from these actually today, haven't we? So win.ini. Okay, brilliant. Win.ini. Okay, excellent. So we've got that bang on as well. There's still a few questions that we haven't answered just yet. I imagine we'll probably delve into our PCAP for those. Okay, excellent. But I guess what we do know from that, if we just have back into access logs, is that the malicious IP address is at hand here is 10.255.254.3. We know the user agent string curl is being utilized, or curl tool, command line tool is being utilized by the attacker. And we know that we now also know the CVE that was actually exploited. So we're doing quite well here at the minute. And I think we've answered a few of the questions so far. I think we've probably exhausted our options now from the access log, so I think we can jump into our PCAP. So I mean, we already know a few details with this, and that is that the IP address and that HTTP was most certainly utilised by attackers. That's what the service actually seems to be hosted on. Okay. So we can see immediately here, quite clear, is our path traversals. If I just shrink that a bit, let's see our path traversals. That is the EULA. That's win.ini, and then we can see program data. I'm sure if we move this to right here, we see use.sql. Now I'm immediately curious if we just follow that HTTP stream, what we're actually seeing there. So we see SQLite formats, and then we can actually see that what looks like an administrator account exists within that database that's been stolen. And I fully expect we can probably export that. So what packet is that? So that's 114.8.181. Okay. And we know that was about 20,000 bytes in size. So I expect to see probably the file name based on this of connection, the connection loss.php. So we'll wait for that to come up. There we go. Okay, it looks like that's closest in size we can get. But we can see two of those, however, interestingly enough. Well, which we can take both of them if we need to, and maybe come back for the other. And let's just call that user.sql. And save it to Repetia. Okay, excellent. Okay. If we just open up our terminal here and string user.sql, yeah, we can see that's definitely the SQL database that was stolen there. Now, if we jump back into EP, we can actually see, if we just scroll down here, remember the size of the database retrieved by the attacker in bytes. So if we go back to our VM, and right click properties, and we could use command line for this. I think I'm being ultimately quite lazy here. Wait for that to load up. We can see here that's 20,480 bytes. So let's enter that into our platform. Okay, excellent. That's another question bang on. Very happy with that. Now, we can see here which account was used to successfully authenticate to our printing server. Based on what we've seen so far, I'm fully expecting this to be the administrator account, but we'll keep investigating as there might be other artifacts that we're missing in there. But we can roll out of that TCP stream. So IP dot. Okay, so we see WSMan is in use here, and then some kind of NTLM over HTTP is in use. And it's all from, I think, once again, the same malicious address that we've seen time and time again. If we just scroll down here. Okay, so we can't see much else realistically in use here. However, I'm quite curious to see yeah, we can't see much else in use here. If it was tracked back there, I know they showed my EP screen for a bit longer. What we can see here, like I said, is NTLM over HTTP being used. We can see the user administrator potentially attempted to be used. Now I'm pretty sure this is often indicative of WinRM traffic. So I'm wondering if we do TCP.port and then equals 5985. I'm half expecting to see that type of traffic actually being utilized here. Okay, so I guess it's as expected. So we see deskport 5985 is being used, WinRM, and you can see the user name administrator. Okay, so at this point I think, and based on the fact that this occurs after the theft of the SQL database, we can be pretty confident that it was the WinRM that was utilised by the attacker to authenticate to our printing server here. So if we jump back into EP and we just actually answer administrator there we go. Okay, that is bang on. And I think now at this point we know that both port 80 and 5985 have been used by the attacker, and it mentions there that which two TCP ports were used, so we can answer that as well. Okay, excellent. So we jump back down, we can see there's not actually many questions left here. And which Windows protocol did the attacker utilize to authenticate to our printing server? So I think we can answer that as well as WinRM based on the analysis we've done so far. Okay, excellent. So there's one more question left, and that is, what is the password of the user account used to successfully authenticate to our printing server? Okay, so we go back into our practical VM here. I'm not seeing much of this in here. It's very hard to actually come to. Based on analysis I have done so far, both live and off the call, it's quite hard to come to a conclusion for this, but I think the most logical method will be to look at the actual password that was stolen. And it looked like an MD5 hash, didn't it? If we just open our terminal again. Okay. Okay, so if we take that MD5 hash and just hash.txt and we drop this into there. Okay, brilliant. Now, in the meantime, the most certain what I find the easiest method of cracking a hash is probably to use CrackStation. So that's where we'll go straight away to see if we can actually find the password for this. So, okay, absolutely nothing immediately. Okay, well, I'm going to take a quick pause on this to try and read up a few details on potentially how Repetia maybe stores its hashes and see if that would help at all. Yeah, I'm not quite sure where to go immediately now, so I'm going to take a quick pause on this recording and come back once I have a couple of answers for you. Okay, so this actually involved setting up a Repetia server in Windows. And what we can see here is there's an app.min.js file, and within that file, what we can see if we have a look within the actual JavaScript functions that exist, that here it quite clearly concatenates the username and the password when performing its hashing functionality. So what we actually need to do is append to a password, so a password list. So we'll use RockQ. We'll append administrator to every single line in RockQ.txt, and then have a look at actually trying to crack the hash. So yeah, I guess here's one I made earlier where I've already performed this. So if we just open up our terminal here, and then if we look at utilizing a word list, it'll be the word list rockq.txt with the appended, of course, administrator at the start of every line. And then the format is raw MD5. Or MD5-raw. Oh no, it's raw-MD5. Okay, excellent. We can see there, administrator Hugo #123. Okay, excellent. So if we actually jump back into our EP platform now, we should be able to answer the last question. So if we answer it, we copy and paste it across. Okay, yeah, so as I explained, we can now enter the credentials that we've seen here. So it is Hugo #123. Okay, and brilliant, success. So we can see that we've successfully completed the Sherlock repetitive-D. We've done it within the time we had. There were a couple of points where we had to sort of step away and rethink something, which is perfectly normal when building or playing through any Sherlocks. But I guess, yeah, thank you for watching today. Hopefully you enjoyed this talk. And please feel free to provide myself any feedback from SevH24.
There we go. We're back. Hey, everyone. Awesome talk there. We are going to, I believe, take a short break after this before we get into our next talk. After we come back from that break, it is going to be a talk by one of, honestly, amazing colleague here, XTF. He is a training lab architect, so he works on a lot of the labs, machines, and then the boxes, on Pro Labs and everything like that we have at Hack the Box. Very talented guy. David XTF is going to be giving a talk on Forensics Challenge from last year's Business CTF, so you don't want to miss it. It's going to be a ton of fun, especially if you're like me and reversing and forensics isn't necessarily your strong suit. David is really good at explaining everything, and it's going to be an absolute treat of a talk. So we'll go ahead and take our quick break, but once that is all done, I'll see you at the Forensics Challenges talk. All right, see you in a bit. Hey everyone, welcome back. I hope you had a great little breather there. We are going to go ahead and move into that next top, the forensics workshop by 0xtf, or forensics challenges rather. That being said, lots to love about this talk. Be sure that this is a good talk that if you aren't necessarily as familiar with forensics, definitely listen and watch what David is doing. There's a lot to take in. This is going to be a great one to rewatch multiple times to really get everything out of it. But that being said, let's go ahead and jump over to that talk, forensics challenges from the Business CTF 2022. Awesome. David, take it away.
Hey y'all, this is OXDF, and today for the Business CTF 2023, we're going to be looking at a couple of the forensics challenges from the 2022 Business CTF. The first one of them is MB Coin. It's a challenge I actually got to create. It was a fun one to make and hopefully a fun one to solve. It's a real piece of malware, a real phishing doc, and it's a Word document that has some lightly obfuscated Visual Basic for applications like macros in there, and it drops a VB script, which then downloads a handful of DLLs, or tries to. Now, if you run that, it's not going to actually download them because those the URLs it connects to don't exist. But we also get a PCAP with the challenge, and we can go through the PCAP and carve out the requests that were made, figure out how to take the data that was sent back in those requests, decode it, and get the flag out of a .NET executable that comes back. The second one we're going to look at is called Perseverance, and this is a really neat challenge. It's a WMI persistence challenge. We're going to give you the WMI repository from a Windows machine, and with the idea that there's something malicious going on in there. And so we're going to have to do a little bit of background to learn about what exactly is WMI at a very surface level, because WMI is very complicated. Specifically, we're going to look at WMI events and how they're set up in the three parts of a WMI event. And then we're going to use some Python scripts from the Flare team over that originally put out the famous talk about WMI persistence in 2015. And we're going to use those scripts to first carve out the filters that are causing us problems. And then we're going to have to go back in and get the default value for a WMI object that the persistence is using. And from there, we will get an actual piece of, a binary that would be a grunt or a C2. And in there, in a decryption key, we will find a flag. So it's a fun time. Let's go ahead and dive in. MB Coin. This is actually a challenge I wrote, and it's based on a real phishing doc. I made some changes at the end, and of course, instead of downloading malware, it downloads a little binary that gives you a flag. But otherwise, it's a real piece of malware. So it's a realistic challenge. Let's take a look and see what we can find. The prompt is, we've actively been monitoring the most extensive spear phishing campaign in recent history for the last 2 months. It abuses crypto market crash to target disappointed crypto owners. We've detected it, and we've got some malicious email as well as some network traffic assessed to be associated with the user who opened the document. Let's find out what happened. So I'm starting here in a Windows VM. We will jump over here, and I've got the document here. We'll go ahead and give it an open. As super common, right? Anything downloaded from the internet, you're going to have this macros have been disabled. That's a hint that there's probably some macros to check out. Let's see. Have you been wondering how to make money? Get through now. You may be eligible for thing. Make sure you click enable contents. That's a very common thing you see in phishing documents, is they're telling you, oh yeah, skip through that security thing and go ahead and just enable it, and we'll calculate how much MB coin you've won. We can actually enable this. We'll live a little dangerously here. We know this is not, it's from Hack the Box. It's not actually going to hurt my system. So here we go. Unfortunately, I am not eligible for free coin, and that is a bummer. But it did pop up and tell me that. So let's take a look and see what we have here. I can hit Alt F11 to jump up into the macro editor. Apologies to anyone who does not like light mode like myself, but the Microsoft application here does not give me any options that I know of. And this is simple, so we won't be here too long. Oh, and we're getting this pop-up. I'm going to come back to that in just a second. Well, we'll do it right quick. There's a problem starting program data www.dll. And so we can actually quick break here and jump over and go to program data, and there's no www.dll. That's probably part of the problem. We could dig into these files with what's legit, what was there not. We could also take a snap, like delete them all and then take a snap, but it might mess up my system. But we could look at like what changes when we run this, but we won't need to. It's going to become very obvious real quick here. So we've got these two objects. Let's see, we've QQ. So first of all, this runs auto open, so it's going to run when the document opens. We've got QQ1 and QQ2, which are reading off active document shapes. I can grab that right here and come down to like the intermediate window and do print document shapes. Oh, I cannot do that. Oh, I can't. Of course not. Let's see, I can grab it like this. If I do set like this, and then we can get QQ alternative text. That's what I'm looking for. So we can do print, and we can see it looks like the contents of a script of some kind here, starting here. So we can pull that information, but I'm jumping ahead of myself here a little bit. So we got these two objects which are being used to hide text in the document. They could even be like the monkey logos we saw in the document. I think that's what I did. And then we've got some strings here. So we got C program data, pin.vbs. We're doing a lot of string reversing here. Here's some more stuff. I'm not sure where that gets used. We are getting, I'm clearly changing the document when I'm dragging it around. We are getting the alternative text from these two objects, and we're saving it as dub. And then we're going to create a file. We're going to open ROI, which we can see here is RO, so program data nip pin.vbs, and we're going to write to it. And then we're going to get a shell, and we're going to call, this is going to be reversed, but we don't need to type this out, cmd/k cscript.exe, and then we're going to call that script. Then we're going to wait about 5 seconds, and then we are going to say, no matter what, you're not eligible for coin. No one was ever going to get the coin, guys. It's kind of disappointing. So we're basically going to run this script, and we're done with the macro part here, so we can skip out of this. Let's close that. We're basically done with the document. So we can go into, let's see, we already did. The fastest way to do this is I will open up a new file explorer and go to program data. And here is pin.vbs. We'll open it with Notepad++, and here we go. I'm going to pause real quick here and just show how we could have done the same thing from Linux. If we had been over here, I've got the same stuff in a document here. OLE-VBA, my favorite tool for getting macros out of documents. We can run this, and oops, better page up here. We can see the same macro here that is dumped here. It's warning us about the different suspicious things it's doing, so that's pretty nice. We need a way to get those strings out. OLE dump is another tool from DA Stevens that's super useful. We can run that here, and it will show us the different streams that are available in the OLE object. And in fact, we could take, so it looks like vast majority of these are all associated with macros. We've got this Word document one, and we've got this one table one. I don't know exactly which one it is, but we can do, if we pick a stream, so let's pick like stream 15, the Word document, and we do a -D, it's going to print all that stuff to the screen. Now that one was not super useful and seems to have maybe even broken my terminal. What was the other one we had? 4 was kind of long. I'm just picking the longer ones because they're the more likely to have this kind of stuff in them, right? And boom, there we go. Here is the, oops, I went past it. Here is the different strings we need. So it's a little harder because we don't have exactly where they start and end, but we could basically get a feel for, what these two big strings we need to grab and how to put them in order. So we could do that from this Linux machine as well. And from here on, we could do basically everything from the Linux machine as well. I'm just going to do it over here because I've got a whole copy in the Windows VM. So let's take a look at this script. First of all, it's going to do this kind of date add thing until now. So this is probably the long sleep that we saw that caused some issues before I saw that error pop up. Then we've got these LL things. I'm just going to pretend we're going to skip those for a second and see how they're useful. We'll come back to them. Now I'm building this H0, which is just the string PowerShell combined this way. I'm going to create a WScript shell. Now I'm going to run PowerShell space and then each of the LL things, comma 0. So I'm going to use the WScript shell to run each of these PowerShell things. I'm going to sleep for 5 seconds. Now I've got these things, so some more obfuscated PowerShell. And I'm doing the same thing. So I'm running the PowerShell for each of those, sleeping half a second in between each of them. And at the end, here I got to sleep for 15 seconds. And then I'm going to run DLL32, so run a DLL on this www.dll in program data, calling the ordinal or the export LDR. So DLL's export functions, and we want to find the LDR function. Then we're going to clean up after ourselves, sleep some more. What is OK1, OK2, OK3? I didn't even see those. And then we run some stuff that doesn't exist. So it might even just be left over. Oh, no, right here. Sorry. we're setting those things and then we're doing those things. So yeah. So what are these things up here? Let's take a look. I'm going to grab one of these. We will just, I guess we'll just jump to a new file here. And we lose our syntax highlighting. Maybe we'll just do it in another line here. We can keep syntax highlighting. Okay, we'll do it this way. So nano is equal to juex replace joo with I. So this is the string iex. Then we're going to set an alias oy to be nano, so be iex. Now we have this AA is equal to new. We can basically start to piece this together, right? Because we can see AAQQ. We're going to join foox is equal to AAQQ dub EE, etc. So we're going to have new object net web client download file URL. So basically, we're going to download this URL. We're going to save it to C program data www1.dll. We can see all these are actually the same, except for we have different URLs. So we have privacy careers, perfect demos, business Z, blah, blah, blah. And we have www1, www2, all the way through 5. So we're just going to download 5 different things and save them as www1 through 5. If we come down here to the next section, we got some more PowerShell here. And so we're going to do things like, and this is where, we can do that manually the way we just did, or we can start to do things where we, grab, let's see. So we have B equals read all bytes, blah, 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 through this line. We could just copy this, paste it in, and can't do, let's see, could not find. So we see what it's trying to do. Let's see, we'll come here and we'll say, let's not do all the actual read all bytes. Let's just grab this string. Let's see, maybe I've got one too many, but I think I need one. I need one here. Sweet. So you can see this is just building the string C program data www1.dll. So we're going to read all the bytes into B. K is going to be this string here, just adding together strings. R is going to be a new object that is a byte array of length of B. So the same length as B. And then we're going to do for I equals 0. I is less than B.length, I++. We're going to go over each byte in B or I, B or R. R sub I is going to be B sub I XORed by the kth byte. Basically, we're just applying an XOR string to this thing we downloaded. And then if R.length is greater than 0, so if B.length is greater than 0, we're going to write all the bytes into C. We can just basically say this is C program data www.dll to write the bytes. So what these lines are doing is we're going to take each of these DLLs, we're going to loop over them and decrypt them with a, I think, is it the same or is it different? It looks like it's actually changing slightly. Yes, there's definitely slight changes. Like here's OM1 plus X and OM1 plus P. So it kind of a custom XOR key for each one we download. And then we're writing all of them over www.dll. So that means whichever one runs, well, so that's what the 5 M's are. And we can see they all run in order. So whichever one runs last, like M5 is going to be the one that is going to be the one we actually end up running as www or www.dll, assuming that succeeds. So what do we need out of here? If we try to run this now, clearly it failed because none of these URLs exist. They're all HTB domains. They're not even real. So this is where we can use the PCAP. Let's go ahead real quick and take a look at the PCAP. And we can start off real quick. We see a bunch of DNS, which is, I'm going to skip through kind of an overview of the PCAP. We can jump straight to the DNS for the sake of time. We can see all these dots, like here's calling point.hackthebox, and we get back an IP. Here's another one with an IP. So let's see, what was the number 5 is bonus.corporate business machines. So that's right here. And the response is no such name bonus. So that one didn't exist. That's not going to have returned anything. So that one won't have succeeded. This next one is cabling point.htb. I'm going from the bottom because I want the one that was run last. So cabling point. That one did get a valid URL. So we kind of can say that's probably, let's take a look at what the streams here. This PCAP is quite short. There's not a lot in here. I'm going to grab a TCP packet towards the top and follow it. In fact, oh man, that's tiny. I wonder if I can make that bigger. We're not going to stay in this window very long. So all we need to really see here is that this one is to cabling point. It's actually the one we care about. And there's just a bunch of data here. The next stream is to business.z.htb, and there's a 404 not found. So that one isn't returning anything. And then there's one other privacycareers.htb, and that did return some stuff as well. So I'm most interested in, let's see, we'll export the objects. We'll grab the HTTP objects. We'll grab the cabling point.htb. That's the one we're interested in, and save it. And it's going to save it as vmm.html. So that's fine for now. And we'll close that, and we can actually get out of here. We've got this thing now, and we need to decode it. We need to do the decryption. So we can actually just grab, where's my M4? We just need this line right here, right? So we can do, between the quotes, I'll do this. Let's see. First, let's grab, where's our PowerShell here? So we'll go into desktop, biz, mbcoin. Okay, we got the thing here. We will copy vm.html to program data, when this was www4.dll. And now I think I can just paste in literally all that. And I should be able to, in our program data now, I think I have that open somewhere here. Now I have a www.dll. And we can actually just run it. How are we running it? We want the LDR function, so we could grab this right here, copy. I lost my paste somehow. We'll just do, let's see, program data. So run DLL32, www.dll, comma LDR, and boom, we got the flag. This binary literally just pops up the message doc with the flag. If you were to open it up and reverse it, it is a .NET binary, so you can get the full source, and it literally just calls this. We can even run strings on it in our Linux VM, and the flag will pop out there too. So a bunch of different ways to approach this problem. But anyway, this is a phishing document. It's a real phishing document, but also you're probably going to see a phishing document in this year's CTF, so keep an eye out for it. All right, next we're going to look at perseverance. Let's go ahead and check out the prompt. During a recent security assessment, employees' credentials were in a data database. They basically come down to, I'm just kind of skim through this, but basically they've determined that there is a malicious actor living in their WMI for persistence. I've given the WMI repository from the user's workstation, and can I analyze and expose the technique? And this is super cool. I love WMI is such a cool thing. It's such a, and I still remember in 2015 when, in fact, we'll talk about this. I'm going to jump in here. There was this DEF CON presentation at DEF CON 23 by the FireEye team, and they just kind of like brought this out into the world in a way that was very exciting to watch. I really recommend, this is if you're in information security, this is an hour and 45 minutes well spent. It's information that's still useful to know today, even though it's 8 years old. I'm actually going to we're going to do a little WMI background here real quick, and I'm going to use slides out of that presentation. So basically, WMI is this incredibly complicated architecture where you have these different clients, there's query languages, there's this protocol standard through DCOM, which can then talk to the WMI service, WMI management, which then has these providers, and there's a repository for database, and it can do things like create processes, and it can listen for events, and it can do all sorts of things. It's complicated. We are going to focus, and when we start thinking about malware living in WMI, we're going to focus largely on this thing called WMI events. And what that really is it's 3 pieces of WMI, a filter, a consumer, and a binding. A filter is a thing that says when this happens, this thing to watch out for. When this happens, this is what is going to cause me to trigger. A consumer is some action you're going to take. So you can say run a process, or write a log, or copy a file, or send a log somewhere. And so the binding is what registers and connects the filter to the consumer, so that when the filter happens, the binding points it to the consumer, and the consumer does the thing. And so this is really useful from the point of view of a piece of malware, because we can use this WMI filter, events to get persistence without keeping files on the disk, right? We're living in this WMI sim repository. We're in these managed objects, and we're not somewhere that you just see malware living on a system. So especially at the time, was a very stealthy way to do things. So let's jump over here. We've got all these files except for prompt.txt are what came in the downloadable zip, and they told us in the zip this is a WMI management repository. So the script we're going to use is this from the Flare team, which is let's see, go back up here. Oops, didn't mean to go that far. Which is from Flare WMI. Now this is old. It's like 6 or 7 years. Last modified 5 years ago. It says that the PySim is still actively developed. I don't know about that, but it works well, and it's certainly a good enough tool for what we're trying to do today. If you're at all familiar with the Impacket set of tools on Windows, which is where, or on Windows, on Linux, which is a set of Python libraries that do things that are used, that speak the Windows native things, and you get sample scripts with it. This is of the same idea. So there's this Python sim library, and we're going to pip install, we're going to go into this directory and run pip install dot to install this setup.py. But then there's also this samples directory with all these scripts that show us things you might want to do. So the same way that, Impacket has a thing for Kerber roasting, that shows off, it's an example of using their tools. This has ways to show filter to consumer bindings. And so that's one of the scripts we're going to use. So we're going to use those samples. In fact, let's go over here and we'll do just that. We can do Python opt, where did I store it? Flare WMI, Python sim, and then we want to go to samples. And what did I just say? Called show filters, maybe? Yeah. And just from playing around with this, we could open up the script and look. But we know this either has to take XP or Win7 as the first argument, and we're just going to assume it's Win7 because it's not XP. And we're going to give it the current directory to have the repository. And we actually get 2 bindings back here. You can see one here and one here. It's not the prettiest output, but it, okay. This first one is a SCM event log filter. This thing's legit Windows. This is like on all systems. I actually remember working in a large SOC and trying to implement rules to detect filter to consumer bindings, WMI filters across our enterprise, and being overwhelmed with the number of these type of events that I ran into that like, oh, these are legit, this is real. But this other one is not. And in fact, we can see, so here's our filter as called Windows Update, and it's a WMI query language. We're going to be searching for things when things get modified within WMI. I'm not exactly sure what this is doing, but it probably is going to end up being like a periodic thing that just happens every 60 seconds or so. But what's really interesting to me, obviously, is this payload, right? So we're going to run PowerShell with an encoded command right here. And so now seems like a good time to take this. In fact, we can just, let's say we go to CyberChef, but we can actually just do it right here. And we'll base 64 minus D to see what we get. One long line, let's tr replace semicolon with new line so we can get a kind of a better feel of what we're looking at. It's not bad. Okay, so file is going to be a WMI class. This in the root sim_v2 repository, we're looking for a WMI or Win32 memory array device object, and we're going to get the properties, the value. Then we're going to create a stream. We're going to take a file and convert it from base 64, and then we're going to decompress it, deflate it with the deflate stream, and then we're basically going to load this into memory and invoke it. So we're going to pull a binary out of WIM and run it in memory without writing to disk. So the next thing we need to do then is figure out, okay, well, how do we figure out what this WMI memory array device is? And we'll use another, let's see, go up here. We'll use another one of these sample files, and we'll look, it's one's called autocarve class. We'll start with names. We can just give it the current directory again. And you can see these are all the class names that are defined and described within the WMI repository. Now, if we go to the very end, we see the last one, or the last two, is the one we're looking for here. So we can now do, instead of doing class names, we'll do class definitions. And this puts out a ton of output, so I'm going to just pipe it to less so we can search in it easily. And if I search for the memory array device, here it is. And so here is that device, and here's the default value, which is a big blob of base 64 data. Which is exactly what I want, right? So let's, I'm going to shrink this window down to here so we can grab the whole thing. We'll come up here, copy that. Let's jump over and we can jump into CyberChef. Like whenever I have to do like inflates, that's always a useful one to do here. And I'll show you another trick we can do here. We'll paste in here. We're going to from base 64. We're going to inflate, raw inflate. And hopefully, yep, we've got a Windows executable down here. MZ cannot be run in DOS mode. That's perfect. I want to take a look at this. Let's see. So we can save this to a file, and we'll call it like perseverance. I don't know how you spell it. .exe. And we will come here and move downloads perseverance.exe to here. We can do a file on perseverance.exe, and we can see that it's a Windows 32-bit executable. It's a .NET assembly, which means that we should be able to get the source code back or something very close to the source code. So that'll be neat. I could do this in ILSpy on this machine. Because I have a Windows VM available to me, I like DNSpy better, so I'm going to jump over to DNSpy. One trick we can do here, if we want to just grab this URL, copy this, come over here to my Windows VM, CyberShell. I don't even need to go to CyberShell. I'll just paste this in, and I get the exact same thing back here. So now I can download this, and I'll call it Perseverance. Perseverance, isn't it? Perseverance.exe. You are all here for the spelling lessons, I'm sure. We will open that here. We will open up DNSpy. Drag this in. And the grunt stager. So this is looking like actually probably a real C2. If we click in here, let's see what we get. So we've got some base 64 strings, got some more base 64 strings. Doing some decryption, it looks like. So maybe now we'll start taking a look at what some of these things are. Anytime I see a bunch of base 64 strings like this, I feel like I definitely want to at least take a look at what that means, what's going on there. So we can do a new tab. Put this in here. I thought I copied. Paste. Oh yeah, okay. From base 64. That's definitely the start of a flag. So let's go ahead and grab this string builder right here. Oops, it's not mean to do that. Back. This string builder right here, you can see we've got these 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it's actually used down here to create the key that's going to be used for encryption. So this is probably a legit piece of malware that we are just using the encryption key to be the flag. So let's paste this in here. And looks like we are getting very close. Hopefully, with any luck, this will produce the end. So not a super difficult challenge, especially the hardest part was probably finding the WMI tools to how to parse the WMI repository. And these Flare-on tools work really well for it, or Flare tools work really well for it. So I recommend those. Yeah, just understanding the idea of filter, consumer, and binding. And when you think about WMI, it's going to be really useful for you. So. Thanks.
Hey everyone, we're back. We are all good to go. We have one more talk after this. It is going to be an awesome talk with one of the wonderful folks over at Snyk. It is Unlocking CTF Success with Snyk by Vandana Verma Seghal. Apologies if I mispronounced your last name. She is a senior developer advocate at Snyk. Wonderful person, wonderful talk. We really do have some exciting stuff coming up. That being said, let's jump right in and we can watch our last talk of the day.
Hi everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I'm going to be your host for today's talk, where I will actually show a sample for how exactly the CTF can be played. Like right now you are doing it Hack the Box. So it's just a sample where we would try and unleash how exactly we play CTF. So let's get straight into it. Now, why am I actually concentrating on CTF success? Because we want to make sure that we play a lot of CTFs and we take part in it. There are a lot of people who reach out to us and ask, how can I play CTF? We do a lot of workshops around ethical hacking, CTF 101s, and DevSecOps fundamentals workshops. So this is one portion which we have picked. And with the Hack the Box, there are so many virtual machines and boxes which are there, which you can explore and figure out the issues in them, as well as you can play CTF with Hack the Box. So today we would be starting off with the very basics and share one of those challenges. So a little bit about me. I'm one of the security advocates at Sneak, where I help them getting the word out about security. We do write a lot of blogs, we do sessions, we do create a lot of content around security, and that's where I am, a security advocate at Sneak. I'm also one of the global board of directors at OWASP, which is Open Worldwide Application Security Project. So today, as part of the agenda, we would be learning what is capture the flag, and why do we want to get the flag, and what is flag anyway. We would also be solving one of the challenges as part of our Sneak CTF, and then what do we do after learning, or where do we go after from there? So let's learn about what is a flag anyway. So can one of you tell that what is a flag? Flag is where you can figure out a hidden treasure. Let's put it this way. So CTF is where you try to solve the challenge. So capture the flag. Now here there are multiple players who are playing this game and trying to figure out that unique puzzle. Now, this is a platform that we use for running the CTF, and there are multiple challenges as part of it. Right now, if you can see on the screen, there are 2 challenges which will come up because we've only enabled 2 of the challenge. I'm an admin, so I can see admin panel and I can play around with the challenges, but there are 2 challenges here right now, and I'm going to be solving one of those challenges. Based on the points, the challenge differs. So you can see it's a 50 points, so it could be easier, depends on the way it is set up. So let's go ahead and explore it. Now here, when you explore, what do you see? Right now, what I can see is that there is a URL that is there on the screen. So here, invisible CTF. Okay, now I can see that there is a request and response. So the request section has a post request with an endpoint echo. Now there's also a content type, application JSON, and a body message, which is ping. So there's a request response, and in the request, this is what we see. Now the response that we are getting from the request is the following. We have an interesting bit in this particular response, a flag which says disabled, but then there's a user IP, there's a timestamp, but a flag says disabled, which means we need to enable that flag. So the flag is the key, the value is disabled. Maybe we could try to change it, we could try to manipulate. But what we need to do is first we need to try and play around with this endpoint that we see, which is /echo endpoint. We can't make a post request by using a web browser, so we need to use maybe a curl command, or what we can do is we can actually leverage tools like Postman. So they're really good for helping us out with these kind of requests. Now let me go ahead and get my screen here where I can show you how we can run the curl command. But yes, you can use your Postman, you can use or you can leverage any other tool that you want. So give me 1 second. Let me just move it here on the screen. And I hope you all can see. Let me just zoom it a bit because I like zooming the screen so that everyone can see it. All right. Now I'm using, if you see /echo, let's see if it works. Now cannot get /echo, which means here we just try to get a try to use a get command, but specifically we need to define the post command. So curl -x post and then this particular command, and let's see if it gives us something. If you see that it has given us a header where it says HTTP great content type and give us some information. Now it also gives us information that we can put a header as well. So let's go ahead and play around with the request and put a header type, which is application JSON, because we know that there was a JSON that was used. Okay, which is here. Let me just put enter and see what it gives us. So if you see, it is given us some information. Now, with that information, right now, I can see the flag is disabled. So when I see the flag is disabled, we can probably try and enable the flag. So it says message ping, and now I'm going to add a tag which is with flag, quote, and maybe enabled. All right, so we have enabled the flag, all the codes are perfect. Let's put it, hit enter. Now, if you see right now also it's disabled, which means we can try something else. Let's go ahead and see if we can maybe just say true. Sometimes those things work. All right, let's see if it works. It still did not work. Now, which means we need to look for some other information, and let's go ahead and get some more information from the challenge. Let's go to the challenge. Now, when I go to the challenge, I can see there are two files which are also being given. Let's go ahead and download index.js, which I've already downloaded, and then the package.json. Let's look at the most interesting bit where we are going to be analyzing these particular two files. So here, if you can see on the screen that we have opened index.js and package.json. And what I'm going to do with these two files, I'm going to first of all analyze. So let's go ahead and analyze index.js. What information does it give? So it actually gives me information about that it's using Express framework. There's a body parser, there's a Lodash, which is there. And then I can see that they're using post request slash echo is there. Then there is a flag which is there, which is disabled, which we tried enabling, but that was not happening. Now let's look at the packet.json. So I can see that there is a Lodash, there's an express, there's a body parser, and these are three dependencies. Now, first thing, when I look at these dependencies, what I do is I want to check out whether is there any vulnerability in them or not. So why do I actually check for it? Because these vulnerable dependencies can give me a wide area to play around or give me a good amount of information. So here, as soon as I loaded, Snyk started scanning because I use Snyk to get me the information about dependencies. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply go ahead and run a Snyk test and see what all vulnerabilities are there. All right, so it actually has given me some good amount of information. So what I can see is that there's a Lodash vulnerability which is related to regular expression, denial of service. Then there's a command injection. There's a prototype pollution. Now, prototype is one of those prototype pollution is one of those vulnerability which are picking up big time, especially in the NPM ecosystem. And we know that it's using an Express framework and it is based on Node, so we can play around with it. And let's go ahead and take a look at Lodash itself. So Lodash, this particular version, which has a vulnerability. Now, whenever I am in trouble or I am stuck somewhere, what I do is I go and check Snyk database. All right, so let me go ahead and go check out Snyk vulnerability database, where I can look for this particular vulnerability, which is Lodash at OK. But then let me search with Lodash if I can figure out. So if you see with Lodash, there are a lot of vulnerabilities which have come. And especially if you see, there are a lot of prototype pollution. So I want to know about prototype pollution. Now, prototype pollution is a vulnerability affecting JavaScript and refers to the ability to inject properties into existing JavaScript language. And there are magical attributes which we can play around. So proto, constructor, and prototype. So where we can manipulate. I'm an attacker here and I want to play. So probably I can play around with proto, constructor, or prototype. So these are unsafe objects, and you can see that why or how exactly I can play around with it. Like I can actually add this particular this particular object into the payload and play around with it and see if it works. Now, if you see, as soon as I actually used that particular command with proto, I was able to get this flag. Now let's use this flag first of all and see if it works. So I'm going to use Snyk. I'm going to use it till here, and I'm going to put it in my challenge because I need to save time. So I'm going to submit and see if it works. Now I have submitted, and as soon as I submit, it says correct. And on screen, if you look at, it says invisible ink, done. If you want to know more about, we have an academy where you can learn about all of these issues. So Snyk Learn is there. So there are these things which you can take a look at it. Now it's on you to take a look at it Thank you so much, everyone, for listening to me and the CTF 101, and where we were unleashing first challenge.
Awesome. And that is going to do it for our talks today. Thank you so much, everyone that tuned in and watched. Now, there's more to come. Don't forget that it's not just the talks with the Business CTF. We do have a little bit more. Speaking quickly on the talks, every talk except for mine, since mine was live, is going to be up on YouTube right after this. We've got those pre-uploaded, so if there was a talk you might have had trouble seeing something, or you wanted to go back and be able to see that again, those are going to be up on our channel here shortly. My talk will be up, I would assume, probably by Sunday or so. We just need to extract it from the live stream. Now, later, let's see, tomorrow, rather, not later today, tomorrow we do have the actual CTF starting. Take a look at the Business CTF landing page, and I can put that in chat here in a moment for any details on that. But between today and tomorrow, definitely be watching those talks. Go and check out any of the categories. It's a great idea to go and look through what categories of challenges are going to be on there. And if you think that any might be a little bit weaker for you, go through and brush up on those. Maybe doing some old CTFs. Be sure to check out some of our older CTF content actually under the tracks on the Hacksbox platform. But otherwise, that is going to do it for today. Thank you so much, everyone who has hung out and watched all the talks with me. It's been great hanging out with y'all, and I'm very excited to get everything started tomorrow. Heck yeah. Awesome. Thanks, everyone.